Modern corporate strategies are routinely tested by forces entirely outside their control. Sudden market volatility, aggressive macroeconomic shifts, and unpredictable supply chain disruptions act like violent weather systems, continually battering the rigid structures of the corporate landscape. The standard executive response to these external pressures is to deploy brute force endurance tactics. Leadership teams lock into rigid 5-year forecasting models, attempting to wrestle the future into a predictable spreadsheet. The mathematical reality is that relying on pure predictive modeling fails systematically. Exogenous forces are inherently erratic. Attempting to pinpoint exactly when a competitor will launch a new product or how a specific regulatory body will act yields diminishing returns. Forcing teams to continually absorb and react to every unpredicted shock creates rapid operational exhaustion. The workforce burns out trying to manage variables they have zero mechanical leverage over. True organizational survival requires a different approach. Instead of attempting to perfectly predict the external storm, a company must engineer an internal architecture designed to withstand it. This state of perpetual ambient anxiety is not a uniquely modern corporate problem. The citizens of ancient Greece operated in a highly chaotic environment, marked by constant political upheaval and existential dread. Observing this panic, the philosopher Epicurus dedicated his work to systematically eliminating dread from daily life. He developed a highly structured mechanism for processing fear. He called this framework the Tetrapharmakon, or the 4-part cure. Originally, it served as a philosophical heuristic, a mental toolkit designed to help individuals manage their anxieties about life, death, and the gods. The core mechanical function of the Tetrapharmakon is simple. It forcefully redirects human energy away from unpredictable external forces and focuses it entirely on controllable internal systems. We can extract these 4 ancient axioms and map them directly to modern enterprise. The resulting matrix provides a rigorous 4-quadrant strategic framework for business operations. Applying this specific logic strips away the abstract philosophy, leaving executives with a highly actionable operational roadmap for building market resilience and managing crisis. The first axiom of the Epicurean cure is fear no gods. In this matrix, the modern gods are external market forces, competitor actions, and regulatory shifts. They remain entirely outside executive control. Executive anxiety regarding these forces wastes cognitive bandwidth. The rational response is to replace fear with structured quantitative risk assessment. This requires physically shifting capital and strategic focus inward, deploying resources exclusively toward variables the organization actually controls. These controllable levers include optimizing product quality, strengthening corporate culture, and upgrading raw team capability. To handle uncontrollable variables without triggering organizational panic, leaders deploy rigorous scenario planning models. This builds prepared responses for multiple eventualities, eliminating the need to guess the future. Systematic preparedness provides a mathematical defense against market volatility, proving far more effective than relying on accurate prophecy. The second axiom is, do not fear death. In enterprise environments, the fear of project failure acts as a paralyzing agent. It incentivizes safe, stagnant decisions and halts meaningful organizational innovation. Epicurus teaches that an end is simply an event. In business, a failed initiative poses no existential threat to a well-structured company. It is simply a mechanism for data acquisition. This quadrant demands the implementation of a strict fail-fast, learn-faster architectural framework. Operationally, this means radically shortening development cycles. By keeping projects small, the blast radius of single failures remains contained. Integrating tight, rapid customer feedback loops ensures that when a project does fail, it immediately converts that death into actionable, iterative value for the next cycle. Executives must actively decouple failure from their sense of personal competence, viewing dead ends purely as highly specific informational assets. Resilient organizations survive because they process massive volumes of these micro-failures, continuously adjusting their trajectory, rather than placing everything on massive, brittle bets. The third axiom states, good is easy to obtain. Modern corporations routinely fall into a specific trap. They introduce complex bureaucratic layers that actively obscure the value they intend to deliver. Delivering core value becomes a simple mechanical process once operational waste is systematically removed from the system. This requires the rigorous application of lean operational principles, intentionally stripping away non-essential processes, canceling redundant standing meetings, and over-engineered reporting structures. Leadership must identify the absolute core output of the organization, the operational bread and water that sustains the business and satisfies the primary customer need. Strategically, this places a ruthless focus on the minimum viable product, ensuring that energy is spent only on what works. Stripping away excess features and internal friction guarantees that the company can deliver its value to the market with maximum velocity. Extreme operational simplicity cuts through corporate noise, driving clarity, efficiency, and raw market speed. The fourth and final axiom is, pain is easy to endure. Corporate pain will generally manifest in two distinct forms: acute, short-term organizational crises and long-term chronic operational pressure. Both are manageable conditions, provided the business has built specific systems designed to absorb and process these varying types of friction. For acute pain, the protocol is rigid. Deploy predefined crisis management plans. These immediate, structured responses absorb the initial shock without requiring improvisation. For chronic pressure, survival relies heavily on deeply embedded corporate purpose and a long-term vision to stabilize and anchor the workforce through extended turbulence. Mechanically, maintaining morale during prolonged stress requires a disciplined schedule of highlighting and celebrating past team wins. It proves to the team that the current pressure is endurable. Relying on these predefined systems and cultural anchors completely bypasses executive decision fatigue. When high-stress scenarios hit, the system operates itself. Organizing a structured response to friction ensures that short-term operational panic cannot destroy long-term strategic equity. These four distinct operational strategies interlock to form a unified defense mechanism. First, focus exclusively on controllable inputs. Second, process project failure as valuable informational input. Third, eliminate complexity to amplify core value. Fourth, embed systemic crisis architecture. Deploying this modernized Tetrapharmakon shifts an organization out of a reactive defensive posture, establishing a permanent state of proactive resilience. Traditional corporate grit relies on rigid structures enduring stress until they eventually crack. The Epicurean model relies on adaptive systemic fluidity. Attempting to predict the exact nature, timing, or scale of the next market disruption is statistically impossible. Structuring a company around those predictions is a strategic vulnerability. By contrast, fluid systems easily absorb massive external shocks. They flex, process the impact data, and reform rapidly without ever losing core structural integrity. True organizational resilience does not come from predicting the storm. It is built by engineering an internal architecture capable of absorbing the future, whatever form it takes.